What's up, everybody? We are live for the third week in a row. Let's look at the chat really quickly. We have Mentally Ill Sith Lord, X-Core Gamer Skills, Sierran, Bar Sierran. I hope I'm not butchering that. That Star Wars guy, Julia Christine, Vivian Baki, Cad Bane, Saint Pat, Ace Bronx, Brian with the beard. What's up, guys?
Star Wars guy, yeah, Vivian, you guys are all goated in my book.
Absolutely. Just really quickly, guys, some housekeeping. We will be discussing some High Republic. We won't be going into story spoilers in terms of like the meat and bones of the books and stuff, but we will be discussing like where characters are, where they've been, and what they have been doing. So if you're at all, concerned about light spoiler territory, then you are free to mute us. But just watch us. Watch our mouths move, Arya L, welcome.
But mute it and go off in the background.
Yeah. Absolutely. But we are joined by Jedi Star Killer on TikTok. AJ, what's up, man? And you're muted.
Of course I'm muted because I am all technical difficulties today, guys. Thank you again for having me on again. I'm always happy to be here.
Absolutely. I had to have you back because the last time we spoke about like a High Republic thing, like with that whole character sheet that we had back then, it was with you, and so we have to kind of touch base again. Guys, this is Dyad in the Force. And we're back. We are back. What's up, everybody? Gotta give these legends watch time. Absolutely. Just stay here, keep this stream open, and mute during the spoilers. We're not gonna like spoil everything. We're just gonna be talking about characters and the comics. The comics we may spoil a little bit, possibly fully. Because we have to discuss what's happening in the comics. The High Republic has come a long way since we started talking about it. I think the last time we spoke about it, we had a character sheet, as I mentioned, and like, do you guys remember what you said about these characters or what you said about the story before any of this released?
I don't remember life before it was released.
Right, it's a new world.
So like what's going on in the High Republic right now? A lot, right? We have so much information out there. We have so much information about the Jedi, some characters that we were looking at. Some theories have been proven, such as elsewhere, the location of that space station. And then we've met our villains who, for all intents and purposes, have proven to be quite the foe for the Jedi. Both of them. Yeah, just start us off, AJ. What so far has been your favorite thing about High Republic? And is there anything about the High Republic now, having read the books and comics, that has changed? Whether it's like your outlook or your theories about how a character should be and how they ended up. Just anything. What changed and what's your favorite part about the High Republic so far?
Well, I know my favorite part about the High Republic has to be just seeing a bunch of one of the things that goes along with what I didn't expect, which is seeing Jedi looking at the Force and looking at the Council and each other and questioning. Like, there's so much questioning about the Force itself, their interpretations of it, the actions of the Council. And like, because when we were pitched this idea of, the high era of the Jedi, I figured everything would be perfect and, and there wouldn't be a lot of questioning. There'd be a lot of answers. And instead, like, it's interesting to me how many questions were being given instead of just answers. And like, that's why I especially love, I was talking in my TikTok earlier about Comac Vitus.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, I really like the fact that that character is really questioning the way the Jedi look at the Force and whether or not they're wrong to look at it the way they do.
Absolutely. And so, like, what changed? Like, looking at, like, the character sheet and thinking back on what you had said about the High Republic, about these characters, what you had imagined for them. Was there anyone that stood out that was like, wow, I did not expect that?
Oh, so many. Like, I did not expect to be as invested with, like, Loden Greatstorm as I am right now. Like, I need the second book now for no other reason than his story. Like, I'm so invested in that. And honestly, I was surprised at how little we're seeing of Yoda.
Yeah.
That one kind of got me, because I thought we were going to get to see a little more of Yoda. And so far, even with the High Republic Adventures, we don't really know exactly what he's up to and what his journey is that he's going on. We just know that he's on the Star Hopper, and that's like about it, and what we've seen in those comics. And so I definitely thought we were going to see more of him going forward in the High Republic. But I'm sure we will. I just thought we would have jumped that out of the gate.
Yeah. What about you, Chaco?
Skier.
Yes.
So I was worried that Skier might see some hard times, and what's changed is Skier saw some hard times. But yeah, I mean, at that point in time, we were theorizing certain things. Again, getting to see Sarah and Tarek were both on that sheet. We see that they share a brain to the detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to see what Loden, how amazing of a leader Loden was.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also going through some hard times. But the thing that we are getting to see is that there are cracks in the Jedi Order. It's fresh, it's new. We're seeing them at the height of their power. We have this new coat of paint over it, but there's cracks there that we're seeing that can draw straight through lines to the prequels, and that's what I'm enjoying a lot.
Absolutely. Arya says, legit, Chaco. I want to get a book or show or something else focusing on her. I like how she sees the Force. Oh, we're talking about how the Jedi are.
Arya and I were talking specifically about Avar.
Ah, okay. Yeah. That's for me, that's probably one of the Avar is the canon Satele. I like that. Il Sith Lord. For me, I didn't really have many preconceived notions about the characters. I think we kind of ran the gamut on this character sheet and was like, who's gonna be the acolyte or who's gonna fall? None of us said Skier. And no, I don't think he's fallen per se, but we'll get into that discussion when we go into the High Republic comic. But yeah, I think I'm in agreement with the whole kind of the contrasting views on the Jedi themselves. and being the order that they were meant to be is probably my favorite thing about the High Republic so far, and just the amount of Force lore that we are getting. You know, when you get into these new books or these new eras, a part of you thinks that the lore is going to try to remain safe. It's going to try to remain in sort of like a container that you can refer back to what you know and be like, okay, that makes sense. But a lot of the High Republic, even though it's earlier and older than what we know, it's giving us a lot of new, right? So if we're thinking about chronology, the sequels is the most present of times. But in the High Republic, we're getting the most innovative ways of using the Force with rainstorms and, you know, this newly crafted or newly envisioned battle meditation where you can connect literally with someone else across the galaxy. You know, with Yoda reaching out, and then he's teaching his younglings. He's like, "Oh, I feel Avar in the Force. Energy I will send." And then, like, you know, we read that passage where he's like, even Yoda's giving his energy to move this thing. So, just the entire difference in the Jedi Order being autonomous, not working for the Republic, and like Chaco said, seeing the cracks in the foundation, but also seeing the foundation itself. Like, this is what they should have been. And I want to shout out Miss Eggy because I saw her video just earlier today about Light of the Jedi, and she finally started reading it. And she was like, she made this joke about how what was the reason that she stopped reading it? Or not stopped reading it, avoided reading it. And it was...
It's going to make her like the Jedi.
Yeah. And I think this is the best... I think this is the best version of the Jedi, honestly. I mean, to be quite frank, everyone is Qui-Gon. Everyone has their free thinking. Everyone has their own ways to see the Force. Everyone has their own kind of perspective.
Which is interesting because one of the things that we do get with the High Republic era is we know how this ends. So there is an inevitability that this is not going to last forever. And so one of the things to look at is to see all of these free-thinking Jedi during this era and trying to figure out how they're going to end up at the prequels where they are no longer encouraging this sort of free thinking. Like, it almost makes you think that this is going to blow up in their face somehow. And I'm really curious to see what's going to happen that's going to change them into the Jedi Order that we know in the prequels.
I think it's going to be Acolyte.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the end of the High Republic. So when you say linguistically the end of the High Republic, you're like, oh, so I guess it ain't high anymore. It's a pretty bad place in time. So I think the Acolyte is the start of that. Obviously, it's a Darksider, right? So, yeah, it's see what I love about the High Republic now is that it's so far off into the distance that we still see Yoda. He's 664 right now in the High Republic, but it's far enough off where you can still see the cracks, but you know that you can enjoy the era because it's not like Episode 3, everything's gonna crumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's far enough in the future that it's, you know, it's it's like life and global warming.
Yeah. It's definitely gonna hurt our great grandchildren, and I'm gonna be remorseful as hell. So thinking about the High Republic, like big picture wise, is there anything that I wouldn't say favorite? Is there anything that just completely surprised the hell out of you? Just like anything at all when reading the High Republic, and you were like, before you read it, you were looking forward to things, you were thinking about things, but after you read it, you were just like, what?
Marcion Rowe.
I knew
Like,
it.
full stop. Marcion Rowe. Because the second, and I'm still so confused and curious about him, but like, I still remember reading the book and being like, okay, this is fine, you know, but no, not to spoil anything, but like at the end of the first book, he just takes a turn
Mm-hmm.
that like is completely unexpected. And now I'm all of a sudden going, I need to know everything about this man immediately. Like I did not expect, I'll admit that I didn't expect the Nile to be that interesting. I don't know why. I just was like, we're so caught up on like Jedi and Sith that I was like, okay, so the Nile are going to be like, you know, Diet Sith or something.
Space
and
Vikings.
like I did, yeah, like I was like, I don't expect much from them, but Marcion Rowe alone made me go, I need to know what's going on here.
Yeah. Chaco.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta give it to because you straight up stole mine. Because when you first meet, you know, Marcion Rowe, you're like, okay, this guy, he's kind of like a little weasel, but I don't think he's a threat. And then you're like, oh, yeah, he's a threat, but in such a different way. Not in the same way that Sith are a threat or anything like that. So it's definitely fascinating. Along with him, the surprise came from Geode, and how much I love Geode. And it's crazy. I've been hearing so much like, oh, they put a rock in it, it's terrible, like all this stuff now. And the fact that we're hearing that now means that these people haven't read the book, and your complaint is literally the point. Like going, oh my goodness, did they really put a rock in it? That's literally the reaction of the characters in the book of like, is this actually a rock, or like what's happening? That's the point. So, Geode.
Yeah.
I want to come back to you on that subject matter. We'll talk more about how the world, or not the world, how those guys are reacting to the High Republic. We'll come back to that after, in like a few minutes. I just want to say the one thing that surprised me, of course, was Marcion Rowe. I much the same as you. I was like, Space Vikings, that can't possibly be any kind of, you know, tangible threat to the Jedi, right? I mean, and then I started thinking about like weapon choice and how they would, you know, the Mandalorians, greatest enemy besides the Sith to the Jedi, and they weren't force sensitive. So there had to be some kind of compelling weapon choice or combat, you know, tactic that served them well. So I started thinking in that fashion. I was like, okay, maybe they have weapons, gases, or poisons that could help them fight the Jedi, but I did not see Marcion Rowe coming at all. I heard his voice in the audiobook and I was like, oh, this is an interesting choice for, you know, a big bad in this. And then everything he did throughout the book leading up to the end of, and you know, the crux of his arc and the revelation of his character, like his true self, I was like, I love this voice even more, because he was like a John Malkovich type of like villain. And if they ever do an animated, you know, I want John Malkovich to voice Marcion Rowe. What's up, Craze? They're not Vikings, they're very aggressive MLM boss babes. I don't know, Julia. I just don't know what to do with you. I really don't. Chaco, elaborate further on this High Republic mess that's on mainly on YouTube, really.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. There's a lot of idiots out there. That's the best way to put it. There is we know that they've been putting out little shorts and things that are animated that will introduce you to characters and things in the High Republic. If you look at it right now, it's a crap show because people are using bots to spam it with Fire Kathleen Kennedy stuff, with Gina Carano stuff, and it's horrible. It's just like, I thought you guys were like against council culture or whatever. Like, what is this? And so it's interesting. They hate the High Republic. They haven't read any of the High Republic, and I've seen a few of them. People like have sent them to me, and I'm usually willing to hear someone else's opinion that's contrary to mine and whatnot, because yeah, that's fair, and I love talking to people who have different opinions. People don't have opinions. They haven't read it. They have no interest in reading it. They don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. They want to hate it, and so they do. Surprising, but the hate is unfounded, inaccurate, and really.
I think you muted, or not muted, but you kind of fell off there at the end.
Oh, sorry.
Right on the last word.
No, it's sad. It's really, really sad how much time and effort people are willing to put into hating something that they don't understand, and they're putting distaste for Kathleen Kennedy that's already misplaced, and but they're using it to attack books that are completely separate of everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. And what's worse is they're creating a space that kind of reduces the validity of actual critique. Right? Because someone can comment on my videos saying, I didn't really like High Republic. And, that's not going to set me off. But my initial response is, have you read it? Because for the past 2 weeks, I've with Star Wars releasing High Republic shorts and their animated character intros, with all of the hate and with all of the vitriol that's surrounding High Republic, I think Geeks and Gamers, I think you said, Chaco, Geeks and Gamers was just watching the shorts and saying, based on the shorts, the High Republic sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is primarily why we do what we do, is because everyone needs I'm going to be conceited here. Everyone needs a little bit of a little lesson in being critical.
One person negatively reviewed it because in the big meeting with the writers and things, at the end when signing off, Claudia Gray, as a joke, did this. And so then the person was like, see, she doesn't even know Star Wars. And you're like, she's already written like a bunch of amazing books. She's a Star Wars writer right now. But they, I mean, if you want to find a reason not to like something, you can. Doesn't matter what it is. You can find a reason not to like it.
Yeah.
And it's really disheartening to me when they look at the questions that High Republic is giving us, and instead of, like, just earlier when I brought up, things that are different in the High Republic era from the prequel era, and asking the question of, okay, well, how did this become How did column A become column B? Instead of asking that question and following along with the story, they're just going, see, this is how they screwed up everything in the prequels. This doesn't make any sense. You know, if they say that Jedi are allowed to have carnal relations, well, then that screws everything up with Anakin. And they don't like analyze, well, this is 200 years. Maybe let's look at the story unfold and see what changes to get to where we are. But instead of that, they just want to go, oh, this thing invalidates everything. And that's an argument that we've been seeing for the past 5 years with Star Wars, is just the constant need to claim that new material is somehow invalidating the old material that you love, rather than accepting it as expanding upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it creates a space where people cannot legitimately critique these things. Like, I could have a conversation all day about, you know, some of the things that I dislike about the High Republic, but when the space is saturated with hate from these people who have never read it, don't plan to read it, don't want to comprehend it, then you're kind of faced with a dilemma that, you know, most of the negativity that you're going to face when you're talking about it, you kind of have to question, well, have you read it? And I think 9 times out of 10, I think they haven't, just because of just the nature of how social media works. But
well, also the quality of it. If you've read it, I can tell you're not on. And like you said, it ruins the validity of the critiquing process, because now you have people actively trying to destroy. So now what they end up doing is putting Disney in a situation where they can't listen to the fans. They can't listen to the fans. Either you're trying to drown out the ones that are pro it, or anyone that's actually against it for valid reasons. You will never see that as well, because people are being stupid. The only thing that they can do is elect to just ignore it and continue. And I wish these morons could see that they are causing their own problem. It's cool to, I mean, you definitely should be critical of your media. But if you are like a toddler throwing a fit, especially to things that are unrelated, it's going to get ignored.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Harith Production says they only blame Kathleen Kennedy because they want to point the finger at one person. It's like sports fans watching their team fall apart, so they try to shift the blame to one person. A lot of the blame is very unfounded. And they'll go as far as to blame the host of the High Republic show. I mean, come on. Like, we're not we, because we're not doing this, but we're seeing a space on YouTube unfold, or on social media, where it's just become a mess with hatred. And I hate seeing the people who work so hard, who work their asses off to give us these books, these comics, these animated shorts, these shows. This is their livelihood, you know. When people, you know, and this is a touch and go subject, but when people talk about not supporting Harry Potter anymore because of J.K. Rowling, I was like, but you know, this is a lot of people's livelihoods. With, you know, the new game that's coming out, I think it's called Hogwarts Legacy. Some people are boycotting it because of JKR, and I would argue that, well, no, she didn't work on this game. The hundreds of people did in the studio, and that's their livelihood. That's their jobs. So I'm a Harry Potter fan. I'm not a fan of JKR, but I'm gonna play that game. I'm gonna buy that game so I can support all of those developers who worked on the game. It's what they do for a living, and you know, their livelihood is not something that I'm willing to, you know, toss into the garbage just for a principle, or you know, a shaky principle at that, because I know some of it still goes to JKR. I know the royalties and all of that stuff, and it's a tough decision to make. But at the end of the day, when you're faced with supporting this or that, or seeing a movie or reading a book, you have to realize a lot of people work on this stuff, and it's not just one person. And so you're testament to a principle that, you know, sees you trying to kind of make a protest in some way for one person hurts so many more people. And your hate for Kathleen Kennedy and females in general, just I was watching or I was reading an article about the top categories or the top subject matter for all of these hate videos, and there was a lot on the Force is female, and you know, we all know the story behind that. It has nothing to do with Star Wars, but I'm rambling. We have Fern in the chat. Fern's joining us, taking the shortest of breaks from my watch party to pop in and say, "Oh yeah, you are watching your out of order Star Wars, right?"
Yes.
For scientific purposes.
I was gonna recommend really quickly for anyone, because I was looking for it and I finally found it. For anyone who wants to learn more about this whole growing phenomenon of like misogyny and white supremacy in the Star Wars fandom, should check out the article on medium.com, the In Plain Sight, How White Supremacy, Misogyny, and Hate Targeted Star Wars Sequel Trilogy in One. It's definitely an interesting point of discussion. It's a very long article, but it's very well written, and it's really good at summarizing what's going on in that section, and why we all do what we do to try to combat that, to try to make this an environment that isn't simply toxic like that.
And I read some of it, you know. It is very long, but just some key points, you know. It's really, really difficult to accept that that type of crowd is injecting itself into Star Wars. I mean, I have my problems with that crowd on a fundamental level, but now you're coming into my house, and I say that with the greatest of care, but it's my house. I don't say that lightly, but you know, no, I'm just gonna say it. It's my house, and you're gonna try to come into my house and try to like ruin Star Wars. I'm not having it. Chaco, speak on this for a little bit while I simmer.
No, but it's funny because the resistance is growing. You know, they win by making us think that we're alone, but there's more of us, and there truly is. I talked to so many people that didn't make content because of all the hate and stuff that's going out, and now they have like some breathing room to actually enjoy things, and it's shockingly big, the amount of people. It's great because, you know, Bedazzler, Brooke, I don't know if she's in the chat, but she made a sound for people to like share their Star Wars rankings. I don't know if you've looked at that sound, but everyone that's done it, it's actually been pretty refreshing. Everyone has a really unique list, and
Oh, the ultimate one.
yes,
Yeah.
if you start scrolling through those, um and all of those people are being harassed by by toxic people, but the toxic people don't put up their list. They're not ever contributing to the actual thing, and you be shocked at how how many of us there is. It's wonderful.
Every time a toxic fanboy comes into someone's comments to make fun of their list or mock them for it, Revenge of the Sith ticks down a spot on my list. Not that there's a correlation between people whose favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith, but
I mean, at this point, it's at the rock bottom, right? And it's interesting. You bring up a great point, Chaco, about how the loudest people are the ones that aren't putting themselves out there. Like, they don't have a list out there. But
their channel is private. Always, they don't have a profile picture. Normally, it's a user and a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, if you're such an expert and we're all wrong, where's your content? Where's your proof? Like, show us, if you're so confident in your beliefs, show us why we're wrong. Bring the receipts.
And allow me to be diva a little bit right now, but when someone comments on me on my videos and they say, "You must be new to Star Wars," I'm like, look at all my videos. Where are yours? Now, I don't want to like drag people for not being content creators, but if you know that I'm making videos, make sure that I am actually new to Star Wars before commenting that. Wow, I'm getting really
So how about those High Republic comics?
Yeah, exactly.
How about those Drain Gear?
Yeah, let's talk about it, AJ.
Oh, look at him with the paper copies. I'm not gonna lie. I'm all digital at the moment with the comics. But that's a purposeful choice. That's the way I buy comics nowadays. I buy comics digitally and then I buy trades in paper. That's just that's just the way I do it, because I feel like trades, they sit on the shelf better, but more importantly, they're easier to loan out to friends, to give them like a trade and go, here, go read this. So
versus
I
giving them
definitely
one comic and they're like, okay, well that was 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely I like trades in person, but yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, I want to say sorry to the chat if anybody was ticked off that we went off the rails there, but toxicity is toxic, and we always end up addressing it. I think it's a message that we're going to continue to and keep speaking against, because we love Star Wars, and that's it. And we're going to be critical of it, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to appreciate the fact that, and all of the hard work that goes into giving it to us. So, when people are hating it for all the wrong reasons or for no reason whatsoever, we're going to go off the rails for that. Going off of what you were saying just now, I like to buy everything digital just because I like the notebook feature on the Kindle, and I like to be able to refer back to all of these points, these quotes that I love from the books. But I will get the occasional physical copy, like I did with my Into the Dark and Flood City, because they were selling a signed copy, and I was like, okay.
Oh yeah,
don't mind if I do.
Buy my books. I still buy my novels and my books in physical format as often as I can.
Yeah. But thank you and shout out to Daniel Jose Older and IDW Publishing for providing us with the physical copies of High Republic Adventures. We'll be getting to that shortly, after we talk about the High Republic comic by Charles Soule. Is it Charles Soule? Kevin Scott. Kevin Scott. So brief recap. Try to stay away from really detailed spoilers, but like a brief recap of what's happening in the comics so far, AJ.
So we've been following Keeve Trennis, and her master Skier, the Trandoshan Jedi, after the events of Light of the Jedi. Kiev does her trials essentially in the first issue, and then from there they go on a mission that is taking us to, I guess I already said the name earlier, but we're encountering the Drengir for the first time in the comics. And like, I will admit that they were also, for the people who are unaware, they were also the antagonist, the primary antagonist of Into the Dark. And I don't know if I'm just more of a visual person sometimes, but they work for me so much better in the comic than they did in the book. Because like in the book, you're like, okay, sentient plant monster. And like my brain is like struggling to come up with what that looks like. But once I see it in the book, I'm like, I'm able to go back to those moments and Into the Dark and better imagine them. But the thing I love the most about this particular comic is that it's kind of like a PG-13 horror comic. Yeah. Like it feels very offsetting. Like there's a lot of darkness and mystery to what's going on there. And so it reminds me of some of those things that we've been missing in Star Wars, like just genre expanding stories.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I am living for the kind of horror aspect for it, which sometimes works in Star Wars, sometimes it doesn't. Death Troopers to me doesn't work, but but if you love it, that's okay. I also think Abeloth is more weird and not than scary. Like she would sneak up, and then you're like, huh. It's uncomfortable. I'm not afraid. I just don't want it. But yeah, seeing that, but also seeing Skier. I always make sure to pronounce it Skier. Skier. It's two S's. But you know, the previous episode when he takes someone down and then has this like moment of like, oh no, did it have to kill them? Was killing them the only way that I could have accomplished this? Why was that the only method that I saw of resolving this? And like has this whole type of like dialogue, and you're like, wow, this is how Jedi should be. Not you know what I mean? Like wars do not make one great, but you're watching his kind of descent, and things are going bad, and it's interesting to watch, and things do get worse for him, but when you find out why, I mean, the Drengir are no joke. They are no joke.
Yeah.
But the question is why. That's before they come in contact with the Drengir that Skier is experiencing the issues he is. And like we know he's got some PTSD because we see him experiencing that back to the fight at, what was it, Kur? Something like that. We know he's got some PTSD, but there's the question that stuck out to me from that second issue was, why couldn't I sense you?
Yeah.
That's the question that jumped out at me, was what's going on with Skier's connection to the Force in general.
Absolutely. It seems like he's going to be the main crux of this comic run, along with Kiev Trennis and how she deals with that as his former Padawan. And the Drengir. They're another surprise, to be sure, from the High Republic. At first, I think when Chaco and I were...
welcome one. I'm sorry. You can't say surprise to be sure and not finish.
That's why I got you. But Chaco and I were discussing the Drengir on one of our earliest podcasts, and how they could be a threat. And, they released an article saying that the Dringer were Darksiders, or like attuned to the dark side, and we're like, are they force sensitive? Are they going to be like lashing and force pushing and doing all kinds of like force abilities? But I still think that's a possibility. But what we do know about the Drenga right now, though, and I agree, they work so much better on comics, because in the book you just get hey 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 meat fresh meat.
Look at this meat. Yeah.
So I mean, I do get an air of terrifying nature about the Drengir from the book, just based on what they're doing, their actions, right? They are dominating the minds of people, making them twist their allegiances and turn on each other, and that's something that you have to consider for, like, if you're going to make an enemy that is a threat to the Jedi, what's more threatening than making the Jedi turn on themselves? And I think
I did get one prediction right, though.
What was that?
Fantasia. That you're gonna slice one in half, and both of those halves are gonna become two.
True. Or Hydra.
One thing I thought was kind of funny, was Claudia Gray, who wrote Into the Dark. I love her. She's the GOAT. We all know this. But one thing is, she writes character pieces. All of her books are character driven. And so, like, I feel like the Drengir were a perfect antagonist for her, because they are middling as far as antagonists go, in my opinion. Like, I don't think they were the strongest antagonists in a book, but they're not the point of that book. The point of that book is meeting 4 distinct Jedi who all look at and interact with the Force in a different manner. They all look at the Jedi Order and the way that they interpret the Force in a way that we've never seen between any of them. And that is the crux of that book and that story, is the 4 of them. And so, like, the Drengir being a less than flashy antagonist doesn't really hurt the book at all, because if anything, it makes it to where they don't detract from that character story.
Yeah.
Like, they fit perfectly into that story. So as much as they were my one, like, critique of Into the Dark, they fit perfectly within the book, so it's really not a complaint.
Yeah. And I also think largely that the whole Amaxine station, the whole tying in with the Nile, I think is largely setting up like this Sengoku Basara, like War of the Three Kingdoms type of deal with Star Wars. I think the Amaxine has something to do with Marchion Ro. That is a theory, so it's not a spoiler.
It's a theory. I will go one further.
We hope it's a spoiler. It's just not.
Yeah.
I will go one further, and I'll tell you guys about this maybe after the cast, because I don't want to get too deep into all this. But I also think that somehow this is going to tie into the Grisk some way, to bring what's going on in the future to tie into what happened in the past. I think that the Amaxines and the Grisk are going to be somehow related.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, but additionally, the Drengir's ability to dominate a mind is what the Drisk are all about as people. So I wonder if there is a connection, if perhaps the Drengir were created by the Amaxines and Sith together in some sort of weird, perverse alchemy, and it got out of control. But I have some wild theories, as well as a wild theory on how the Force works. If you guys are interested in it, at the end, so let me know.
Do you think? So you think that the Drengir were created?
It's a possibility, or they were a lower form of something, like they've changed into something else later.
Okay. I mean, I do like to point out at least from what we know so far, the Sith were freaked out.
Yeah.
Um,
That
small
was a good
spoiler.
point.
Small spoiler. The Sith sealed the Drengr, and what's happening in the High Republic comic right now is kind of like bringing it to bear. This concept of their dark side nature, and sort of what's happening with Skier right now, and if he's falling or if he's kind of succumbing to the darkness to the point where he's losing his connection to the Force. But then you come to the last panel of the latest issue, and you're like, how are they doing that? And if they are able to do that based on his affinity to the dark side and his tumultuous nature of his mind, could they have just naturally done that to a Sith? A Sith could just come up and say, hey, how are you? And Drinker's like, hey, and then just dominates their mind because they are steeped in the dark side. I don't know. What do you guys think of, like, how does their dominion or compulsion work? Theorize.
Go ahead, AJ.
Hmm.
Take it away.
That's a good one. I mean, because it seems with Dez, that he seems drugged. Like it very much seems like it wears on them. My thought was that maybe it's somehow like spores. This is where my mind went, because they're plants. So I'm wondering if maybe something in that like toxic sludge that we're kind of seeing in the comic is like related to like spores, and maybe like spores getting into their brain and into their blood, and maybe that just sort of corrupts them. But as those spores grow, the Drengir are able to communicate telepathically with those spores and manipulate the person inhabited by them. That's all I got.
The Drengr Chlorians? Now,
Well,
before we go any further, there was a panel where the Drengr were talking to Skier. Do you think he was exposed to said spores prior to that?
Was that, now I'm trying to remember, was that before or after whichever one of the twins is on the ship? I think it's Sarah. When was that, before or after he kind of spit on Skier?
So they found Saret. And
Tarek's the
Avar,
one.
yeah, and Avar, had done what she did, and Skier was alone with Tarek, and he was buckled over and contending with something. He was contending with some kind of voice in the black bubble. And they were trying to compel Skier, and I was wondering if that was their force ability, that they could compel him through his dark side nature, or in your case with the spores or toxins, was he
and I mean, he could have been exposed. He could have been exposed when Saret first went missing, and because he was already on the planet. And it could be, we don't know how far the Drengir are entrenched in this planet. But also doesn't he go to the hole? I don't remember if he goes to find the hole where Saret went missing or not. But he might have been. I was like, I don't think so. I think it's just Keeve who goes. But either way, we don't know how much the Drengir have, like, if there is something in like spores, is that in the air on that planet? Like, is everyone on that planet sort of exposed to, and maybe in some small way privy to what's going on with the Drengir? because I think it's very possible that even if they don't know it, even if the Drengir aren't manipulating them overtly at all times, they might be able to at any point.
But they also might be. I mean, at least the ones that we saw experimenting on Dez were, I mean, like I said, experimenting. They were testing him. They were trying to see what they could make him do and couldn't make him do and communicate. So if they've been on this planet for any amount of time, then I would be surprised if they weren't doing experiments with the local population to see what they could and couldn't get away with.
And I mean,
You know?
people have been going missing. They
That is
talk
true.
about that. They talk about the fact that people have been going missing for a while now.
But we also have to take into consideration just their want for meat, just to just feed.
Meat.
I'm just gonna. That's my Drengr right there. Hey. But okay, so if it is a spore and it is in the air and people are exposed, that would mean that they have all had contact with it, and this would lend credence to the basis of my theory, which is they need to access your dark side. So since Skier is on that path, he's on a downward spiral ever since the Battle of Kerr. Is the spores, we're going to say theoretically, is the spores theoretically affecting him the most because he's, in this dark cycle?
I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, it definitely makes sense that whether it's spores or simply telepathically, it makes perfect sense that because they are so naturally attuned to the dark side, that's what they're feeding on, like with Skier, is because they're pulling him even further toward the dark.
Yeah. Ex-Quarter.
Could this be where Palpatine studied and learned about, using, accessing people through their dark side? Could that have come from experiments with the Drengir in the past, or from past Sith Lords, or possibly that information was the creation of the Drengir? Anyways, I'm just throwing things out.
I mean, you're kind of onto something. I mean, especially if we take into consideration that the station in Into the Dark, we know Snoke was on in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. We know that those are the same station. So if Snoke knows about it, it's likely that Palpatine knew about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're drawing correlation, but like, it's likely that he learned it from somewhere, And so, yeah, that's a thread I hadn't thought about, was how these guys connect directly to Palpatine.
We don't know. Okay, so what we have in the Star Wars book on Snoke is that he was a Strandcast created to be subservient to Palpatine. Did Palpatine use the Drengr toxins? Is he acting as a proxy to Palpatine via that method?
Snoke is a plant. / Mace Windu.
Plagueis. But I mean, do we have any Force mind control in canon?
Not long term, no.
Yeah, not long term, no. Just like, I mean, even the mind trick is sort of mind control, is mind influence. Huh?
I just said mind touch.
Oh yeah, mind touch, which sounds more inappropriate. Like, I don't think I should be mind touched without consent.
Where on your mind did they touch you?
It was my frontal lobe.
And was it a prolonged touch, or was it just very momentary, brief? I don't know. I'm thinking Snoke could have been under his, if we're thinking about how the Drengr do it, maybe Palpatine alchemized some form of draft that was from the Drengir, and he perfected it in a way where it allowed him to. I don't know. This is
Another
reaching.
important question with, but another thing that's really important is, where did the Drengir go that we don't see them later? And so these questions of like Palpatine really do bring in like, is he responsible for the disappearance of the Drengir? Like, did he help, or did the Jedi wipe them out? But like, imagine the threads that we could complete about how Palpatine was able to accomplish what he did if we have some sort of answer like Drengir toxin or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
it's very possible.
X-Core Gamer Skill says, I don't think it's spores because the Maxine would have been a lot worse. I mean, I guess that's true because they're all kind of like teetering on the dark side there, right? You know, we have Orla and Comac. I don't know if it's the work of the idols, but they did have those dark side visions on the station. Now I'm wondering if the Drengir are more telepathic than we're giving them credit for.
But by the way, with the whole idol thing, did anyone else think about the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland? Like, do not look into the idols. You looked, didn't you? Like,
I mean, the other thing we don't know exactly, correct me if I'm wrong, how long the Drengir have been in stasis on that station. I don't remember if it tells us exactly how long, but I'm assuming it's been a while, and so it could be that any spores that might have been there had mostly lingered, and that's where like the visions that they get come from, or just whatever's left over.
Ooh, that I like that. That actually makes sense. Although I guess the chronology for the Drengir is ancient, because they're talking about their fight with the Amaxine, who are also ancient. And
they're ancient to the High Republic.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah.
They're pretty long ways away. And then we're talking about the ancient Sith that sealed them away. And I like to think maybe that was like vitiate. I know what you're gonna say, Choco.
Is it I love vitiate?
Do you think he could be? All right, let me rephrase that. Do you think he could be canonized in his current iteration? I will allow the silence.
I can see it. I just don't think so. I mean, I think he's such a complex character. I don't see this being the way. But I mean, no, I would no. I don't.
I have strong opinions on the Old Republic that we have and the Old Republic that we should get if we ever get the Old Republic in canon. And one of the things that I think they need to do is, if they do give us Old Republic era stuff, they need to reinvent it almost from the ground up. And so, like, while I wouldn't mind seeing characters like Vitiate, as much as I love the Old Republic for what it is, I don't want to see another Republic versus Empire just set a long time ago with Malgus instead of Vader. And I'm like because they're just too alike. And so I have big thoughts about how to reinvent the Old Republic, but I wouldn't be adverse to seeing some of those characters like Vitiate, but I don't think that we should see the Old Republic in the way that we've already gotten it before.
Absolutely. I think if they're ever going to get into the Old Republic, they need to do what the MCU has done, which is kind of create this new fangled Old Republic that is separate from what we know, like how the 616 and the MCU are different. And so we will see Old Republic mainstays and characters and kind of events and stuff that we're familiar with, but they don't unfold exactly, word for word. Like if they do a Darth Bane show or a bunch of movies around Darth Bane, it's not going to be, at 1-to-1.
One of the things I want with Bane is, and I've said this before, is I think the thought bomb is kind of dumb. I think the idea of just one-shotting every Sith but him is really stupid. And instead, I want Bane to be like the ultimate Sith hunter. I want like Bane to be this myth that the Sith tell among themselves. Like Bane isn't real. And then all of a sudden he shows up and just starts murdering other Sith. And just like a one-man wrecking ball through the Sith Empire, so that the Jedi have to look at him and be like, he's terrifying, but he's also helping us.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that kind of idea of telling the similar stories, but reinventing them and making them more enticing. I have a lot of thoughts on
the mythical Sithical.
That would be like the ultimate. That would be the Sithari,
right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like? I love that idea of him just hunting down other Sith.
That would be great. And that's just enough of a change where it's not necessarily being unfaithful to the character, but it's rather it's being reinventive of it. And I think that's probably the only way we'll get Old Republic stuff. If we're to get Satele Shan in canon, it's definitely going to be like a Game of Thrones style Old Republic era where, they have to show her as a Grandmaster. I think because all of her stories happen in this Republic versus Empire stuff that we're just like we've seen it already.
And like one of the things that I was talking about, not to derail this too far, but I've thought when we go to the Old Republic, what we need to have is a world ruled not by the Republic, but ruled by the Sith. And have the Sith be the ones in charge. Have the Force first emerge among people via the dark side, which makes sense because it's easier to access. It's easier to harness quickly and to take control of people who don't understand the Force. And then from there, we get the Jedi rising up from the shadow of this giant Sith empire. And like the story of Star Wars goes, it's hope emerging from one tiny little seed to conquer the darkness.
Yeah, now you're just asking for Eternal Empire.
I am.
Brian with the beard. AJ is like Kiari Mundi, but his second brain is hidden in his brain. Oh man.
Well, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's it's working for you. That's your jam now. You're just gonna be.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so let's talk about the High Republic Adventures, which is in 2 issues now. Shoutouts to Daniel Jose Older and IDW Publishing. You can get this wherever comics are sold, but we now have at least our first 2 tastes of what it's going to be like with Yoda around, with 2 new characters who seemingly represent polar opposites of the spectrum in terms of where they're headed, where they're coming from, because we have Lula Talasola, who's supposedly, put upon, or not, she's set up to be like this Padawan who has so much more potential that she's giving herself credit for, and she's lacking in confidence, And, you know, then we have Zine Morala, who comes from a culture that just like sacrosancts the Force. You're not supposed to touch it. You're not supposed to do anything to it. And what's interesting about this comic is, well, not only the characters within it and seeing Yoda and Master Buck do their thing, is the Mickey culture. Because before, we only had Tiplar and Tiplee to go off of in the Clone Wars. And in this comic, we see that their culture is this. The Mickeyans do not touch the Force in any way, shape, or form. So how does Tiplee and Tiplar become Jedi Masters? And is it as a result of Zine Morala and kind of this arc that we're seeing play out in the High Republic Adventures? I don't know. Chaco, what are your thoughts on this comic so far?
I mean, I am really enjoying it. Looking at how, you know, these two girls are opposite ends of the same. I mean, they're two sides of the same coin. It's just a really cool storytelling device. The culture is also fascinating. People like to talk about what would be considered Bendu. This is Bendu. This is being in the middle. They don't actively use the Force. They revere it. And you know, she wants to use it to help people. Now that could end up being a two-edged sword, but yeah, it's at odds with the beliefs of her people. Her going off on her own, maybe she's the maverick. Maybe we find out that she ends up becoming a hero of her people, and that's what inspires Tiplee and Tiplar. I recently reread Son of Dathomir, and so makes me sad to think about them. Well, just Dooku things. Anyway, one of the things I wonder is if her little friend may also be Force sensitive.
The one, which little friend though?
The little blonde
The
kid.
blonde
Okay,
kid?
because I was thinking
Oh,
about the one that was with Yoda. That like.
Oh, the little.
Yeah, that guy. I forget his name, but
Uh,
you said little
no,
friend. That's what I was picturing.
Come here, my little friend. Yeah. There's a lot of really cool things that are going on here. I can't wait to see, because they're talking about how she's a natural with the Force, and it means that she's always there. She's always heard the call. She's always been aware of it and has denied that. And she can't be the only one. I mean, the fact that they know and understand that it's there, they view it as a fire that's dangerous to touch. Um, how force sensitive is her species? Maybe it's extremely common among them. There's a lot of possibilities that I can't wait for us to explore.
What about you, AJ?
You know, maybe it's my almost Sithness among the three of us, but I tend to see the dark side everywhere. And one of the first questions I had with this story is, if they do decide to train her as a Jedi, does she look a little old to you? You know who else was really strong in the Force and a little too old? And like, the reason I bring that up is, like, while on the one hand I would love to see her be this perfect paragon, and you guys make that point great, I also wonder, could this be where Yoda develops his he's too old to train thoughts from?
Could be.
Like this could work out poorly for them as well to train her, and that could lay down some of that thought. That's very, like, negative, and I have a lot of worries about a lot of characters. Like, I know Element and I disagree on Elzar Mann and his potential future. We've had that disagreement before, but but like but and it's isn't like it's fun. That's what's so fun about this. But yeah, that was one of my first thoughts with her, was like, I was like, she's a little old. And I was like, and no one's going to bring this up. But again, that could be brought up in the next issue, but it was just something in the back of my head.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about someone who was also strong in the Force and was too old to start training, I think of Rey Skywalker.
Yeah.
And she was a success.
And I mean, Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
He was definitely way too old to train.
Absolutely. It's interesting to think about whether or not do we have any physiological lifespans for Mickeans? Connor, where are you?
That's a good thing I didn't think of. That's a good point.
Because she could very well be the acolyte.
If she is the acolyte, I just want to point out
that you were the one.
This was the spot.
Yeah. I mean, so okay, 232 BBY is where we're at right now. The acolyte is around 81 to 82. They would have to have really long lifespans, or at least have a legacy, right? So Zine is like this wicked darksider that comes out of, or that is born out of training at an older age.
She could be the master to the acolyte.
She could be, yeah. I did see the question a couple minutes ago about which Sith could be active during the High Republic. I think around 80. I think around 80 BBY, around the time of when the acolyte is happening, should be Plagueis's timeline. And so before that could theoretically be Tenebris. Who is before Tenebris is something that I'm like blanking on.
So I don't believe it ever specifically states who Tenebris's master was. We do have some idea before them, but I mean, like, the trail goes the opposite way. Like when they explain it, at least through the Plagueis book, they don't say who Tenebris's master was, but they refer to Bane, Xana, Cogna.
Yeah, after Bane, Xana, and Cogna or whatever.
And there's one more I can't remember, and then that person had Darth Millennial, which I always talk about. I pictured that they were some sort of DJ at some point, and like they're fueled by rage and avocado toast.
The lack of avocado toast. That's what drove them.
Darth Chaco, off topic, but Rey was the only Skywalker to pass the mirror trial.
I guess that's true.
Is that the mirror trial or is that the Dark Side Cave trial? Because that's the only mirror trial that we had.
I mean, I view it as a Dark Side Cave trial, or whatever they're tempting of the Dark Side.
Yeah.
It says it was a Twi'lek Sith Lord, maybe Talon, in new canon. That's the thing about Talon. All of when she's supposed to exist is booked, so she needs to be inserted somewhere else.
Unless she were an antagonist for Rey in the future, like in the Legacy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like speaking arrow wise, because she was in Legacy first, right?
I'm not too sure of her
she's from
timeline.
Legacy, yeah.
Like I was like, that was where she was introduced first, was in Legacy.
Yeah.
So that's around like 40-ish? 40 anyway?
When Legacy is 137.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, Legacy was after New Jedi Order and stuff. This is the crate guy talking.
Why
Legacy is
why Kiadi Mundi?
Generations. It's Ben's.
I know.
And then who so Ben had, who was Ben's kid?
We don't know. There's a gap between Ben and Cole. That's never explained who's exactly in between Ben and Cole, because we have Ben Skywalker, and then later we have Cole, and Cole's just there in that first like 2 issues, and then from then on it's just Cade.
So it must be Dylan.
I mean, given the naming convention, yeah. Dylan or
Chad
Tanner,
Skywalker.
Chad, yeah.
Just need.
It's a Todd. It's a Todd. Todd Skywalker.
I just need a scene in in Star Wars where like a Sith and a Jedi meet, and then the Sith is like, Dylan. So we're talking about High Republic Adventures issues 1 and 2. We're also seeing Yoda in action. Now, of course, we said, earlier that we thought we would see a little bit more of him, but I think this is just the beginning. I think we should just kind of simmer down with our expectations of Yoda. Peppered in Light of the Jedi, peppered in Into the Dark with the, with the battle meditation with Avar and with his reference in the Sith Shrine. He is irreverent amongst everybody thus far in the High Republic, and so just seeing him in panels, no matter how few of them there are, is still a treat to behold. Like him showing up to the Starlight with that other Grandmaster. First of all, there's how many Grandmasters?
3, right?
3 Grandmasters.
Lero,
Astala.
That we know of.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
any part say the 3, or like did we add a definite article on it?
No, there was no number on it. They just said Grandmasters, the name of that dude, and then Yoda. I forget the name of the
It's
other.
like Leru, Varric, and Yoda or something like that. I think it's Leru.
I think so too. The other one is Astala
It's
Maru,
something
right?
like that. Oh yeah.
No, but there is a Laru, isn't there? Gosh, do we need our character sheet again? Actually,
No, I mean I said not to be confused with Lamu, who is a cloner.
Leku.
it seems like it's Vitar is his name. Luckily, it's still not. It's still in the thread, in the Discord thread.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So the Vitar and Yoda and
I thought it was Laru was the other one.
where is Astala? Is he not in the council?
Not on the council list. So where is he?
Oh well.
I'm hoping we get more Snake today.
Oh, speaking of, because I brought up Crate. I said we. No, I brought up Crate. Court. Can we just address the Vondaran crab armor in the room? Like
Address it, AJ.
It looks so. I'm almost certain that it's just because it looks cool, but it looks like Court is wearing a mask or a helmet. We know that, and it's very reminiscent of Vondoon crab armor that is worn by Darth Krayt in most notably. And that armor is designed by the Yuuzhan Vong in canon, or in Legends, excuse me. In Legends, designed by the Vong, and it's like a bioengineered armor. It's both alive and it is alive. And it forms like a symbiotic relationship with them. And I'm like, I don't mean to say that this is going to imply the existence of the Vong, but like maybe. Like, and I'll be the first person to admit I don't like the Vong very much. I don't think they're that great, but
they're disgusting. They gross me out so much.
But they look.
You got a promotion. Let's chop off your arm and replace it with a crab arm. Like what? Sorry, it's not a crab arm. It's a weird bioengineered crab where all it is an arm and it's alive, and you kind of have to just talk to it and tell it what to do. It's so gross. I don't know.
But that mask looks so familiar.
Yeah, didn't we say that in the previous episode when we were talking about it?
I think we did.
Yeah.
What if that's actually his skull? and that's where he gets it from. It's like a
Yes.
Cubone situation from Pokemon.
But the other thing is this is just one other thing I'm noticing while I'm looking at the infographic over here. The only person we've seen really like ever with slate gray skin is Marcion Rowe. And we have questions about what that means about Marcion Rowe's lineage, right? Court has a very grayish blue skin underneath this mask. You can see his mouth and the around his eyes. And I'm like wondering if maybe I'm reading way too much into Court. I probably am, because I mean he's done next to nothing except stand there and look cool. but it makes me question: could he? He's Mephisto, but I mean, like, could he be related? Could he somehow be the same species as Marcion Rowe? But I mean, that would bother what our theory is about Rowe.
Well, keep talking. I'm gonna try to put this graphic up for the stream so that they can see what we're seeing. So go ahead.
I mean, you know,
Vamp. Sorry,
I don't have a piano.
Oh, there's a Stalamaru. Not on the council.
For me, Court, at least as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing more of an orangish complexion. So I can't.
Well, I have the digital comic too, but if you look at the comic, you can kind of see it's under his. Grayish blue. But like I said, this could be completely off base. I wonder what his species is in general and how it's connected to like the face mask. And because even if it's not connected to the Vong and Crate or anything like that, it's still unique. And so it's interesting because we have a lot of creatures like that. Shout out to Ensign Peoples that we just don't know what they are. Although I was watching The Force Awakens the other day, and there are these mosquito-looking things at the bar at Takadana Castle, and like I was wondering if those were the same species as Peoples. I don't know, but that's my guess.
I just can't wait to see like Mikhail Sutamani in action more, and like I want Oppo to actually be in action because he's a weird snake monster with 4 arms. Like that seems cool, and that's one of the things I am appreciating though, is that we have such a diverse cast of aliens, and like I always say, Star Wars is best when it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ever going to get Kiari Sunzi?
You know, I'm just going to tell you this. People talk about one notable exception from that. I'm sort of skating around this. One thing that we neglect, or people have said is an omission of the High Republic so far, is Plo Koon is around the right age to be active right here. So, like, it's sort of a notable exception of where is Plo Koon. And I mean, it could be, we have no idea. It could be like, maybe he's a way seeker, or maybe he's taken the Barash vow at some point for some reason we don't know yet. Or like something along those lines. Like, we have no indication of Plo Koon anywhere.
Maybe he's a larva somewhere.
Speaking of age, though, if Kiadi Mundi shows up, then you guys are going to lose me on the High Republic.
I said Kiadi Sunzi.
Oh, I know what you said, but I'm just telling you.
So address the question. I'm just kidding.
I refuse.
I mean, we don't really have a canon age for Plo Koon, so I don't think, at this point, I don't think he is of the age that a lot of people, prescribe to him in Legends with the whole, I think, 138 or how many Caldor years he is.
It was like 450. Not four, like three something.
Oh, my numbers are way off today.
Yeah, that's why people thought that they would see him, is because they thought he was a couple hundred years old.
But I mean, as a Keldor, he's kind of a weird bug monster, and so I love. He's my favorite. Again, he could be a larva. He could be in some other like a chitinous form. Maybe we've seen him, and he's just he hasn't gone into a chrysalis and come out as Plo Koon yet.
This conversation of age just made me really sad. Okay.
Why?
Because Buryaga Agaburi, and I love to say his name, is a Padawan, and Wookiees live a long time. And the fact that I didn't see him in the Phantom Menace gives me really bad hopes for what's going to happen to my boy.
He could be taking the bearish.
Like, I don't... At which point makes me even more sad, because I'm like, does that mean Vader's going to find him?
Hey,
that's true.
What if we get something like after the sequels, and he's like, "Hey, I'm back from my town. What's going on, guys? Where's the temple?
I got the plot twist of the century. He's been Chewbacca the whole time."
Oh my god. That would be the twist of the century.
The twist of the century. He's Chewbacca the whole time.
No, but doesn't Chewbacca have a canon birth?
I'd have to dig up what the third Life Debts, the third book from the Aftermath series. They may talk about it there, but I don't recall a canon birth. If they talk about it, that's where it would be.
He can't.
Well, in my head for
riot.
now. In my head for now, he's Chewbacca.
I'm just imagining now him.
He had a vision and knew exactly where he needed to be in order for things to move accordingly. That actually matches up with my crazy force theory. So.
Oh God.
Oh dear.
That's even more concerning.
Well, now I'm just imagining him landing on Octo. He's like, no, Rey and Chewie like see him, they're training, and you know, Chewie's like, oh, and then Buryaga walks up to them. He's like, it's another Wookiee, Rey says, and then Buryaga is just like, I'm back from my phone. he has to speak like that.
Okay, but I kind of do have to love the fact that Buryaga's existence kind of lends credence to the joke from what's it called? Seth Green's show,
Robot Chicken.
Yeah, the Robot Chicken joke, because Buryaga's wearing robes and stuff. so
Chewie really is.
You've been naked this whole time.
Oh no, he hasn't. He wears belts.
He has a bandolier. He has a series of.
He essentially has a G-string on.
Oh man,
it's under the fur.
Okay, so wow.
Sorry.
Derailed yet again. This should be the derailed of the Force. But we also have a new class, a new character. We have Tarn Buck, Tarn Buck, who is buckets of blood, and this is going to be captioned in unintelligible. And
buckets of blood.
He's an interesting character. So, you know, it's been really, really interesting to see all of the different people in the High Republic, with Reith Silas and Comac being like the scholars and, you know, the folktale people, people who don't like fighting. And now we have Master Buck, who is the resident healer. And so now, outside of Legends, we have our first canon healer. Now, does he have force healing, or is he just teaching first aid? Is he like an EMT of the Jedi? Um, what do you guys think of Master Buck?
I like him because he's huge and terrifying, but he's a big softie. Um, versus having him right next to Yoda, who's a tiny little grandpa looking guy, and he will tear you a new one if he has to. So I do like the juxtaposition, but I don't. I think he uses the Force to heal. I do. I think he is a Jedi healer.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see force healing in some capacity in the High Republic, and I think it's a way. It is one of the force abilities that can really differentiate this era from further eras of the Jedi, especially from like the prequel era, because it almost seems like an ability where you really have to be in tune with the light side of the Force in order to be able to use it. And I think like losing the ability to have this losing this ability shows the Jedi's lack of connection to the light side the way it used to be. So I think that a character like Torban being so attuned with the light that he can heal like that shows like how far they've fallen by the time we get to, because like even all of these Jedi, like you don't see a Mace Windu among them. The closest we've gotten is like maybe Porter Engle from The Light of the Jedi.
That's a
but
great
like,
analogy.
Like we don't see fighters. We don't see hardened people. And like I think I use Windu especially because I don't know if it's still canon, but I know that it was that Form 7, like Vapad is like his variant on Form 7. And like this idea that again, like that just shows you the shift in the Jedi's thought process and the way they work, because Porter is a heck of a warrior, but he doesn't want to fight until he absolutely has to. Meanwhile, you have someone like Mace Windu who is cultivating these fighting techniques. And the question is, if they haven't seen a Sith in so long, like, why is he cultivating this technique? Like, for what purpose is he cultivating that? And like, that feels like further proof of how far away the Jedi are straying from where they should be.
That's really good. You're right. I don't think I know of any High Republic Jedi who are like. I sincerely think everybody is Qui-Gon in the High Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as the resident Mace Windu fan, I have to say, I mean his fighting style was an answer to his own personal nature. Like it wasn't because it's more effective, but because it's more effective for him as a person. It's an answer to his own, at least through Legends, it was an answer to his own weakness. Just like Yoda uses Ataru because he's very short and tiny, so he has to do things to gain reach. Um, but
I mean, doesn't that
his
kind
role,
of call into question Mace Windu though? Just a tiny bit?
What do you mean?
if he's doing something to actively prevent it, him being pulled over, I think it's the opposite. But
Okay.
I argue that he, more than anyone else, is the one who is like, no, absolutely not. We're not giving Palpatine a seat like on the council. That's wrong.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And like he also uh didn't doesn't cave in to Anakin just because Anakin is a powerful warrior or all this stuff. And he's like, man, I'm the best warrior here. I should be on the council. And it's like, that's not that's not a prerequisite to being on the council. Like, no, you need to slow your roll. I'm not gonna just fawn all over you. We still have to do things the right way, and it's actually something that Luke remarks upon in the Secrets of the Jedi book, that Mace was one of the people standing against that whole thing. So that's where I stand on him. I don't think there is a Mace Windu on the council, but I sort of see Elzar as being both the Mace and the Qui-Gon mixed together by comparison. But seeing as they aren't, in the seat of the Republic at this point in time, there's no one who needs to actively like say no, stop that. Mace was like, hey, we should tell the Republic that our ability to use the Force is diminished, and Yoda's like, no, we're not going to tell that. Okay, I guess it's weird.
I mean, let's talk about Elzar Man real quick, because I know we have differing opinions, and I kind of want other people to hear those opinions too. Like, I think so. Elzar Man, for those who don't know, is extremely curious about the Force, and he looks at it like an ocean, and like there's depth to it, and he never wants to use the Force the same way twice. Like, he always likes to be inventive and creative with it. And I think that one is an in-story reason, and one is me metagaming a little bit. To metagame, his relationship with Avar Kriss speaks to me as something like, there's no way this ends well for them, and it's got to go poorly for one of them, and it's probably not going to go poorly for her. But the other thing is, the reason I feel like it works for his character is there's only curiosity killed the cat. There's only so far you can experiment with the Force before you start to question, like we see with Comac, this idea of, is there something in the dark that we can use? Is there something more that we can learn by opening ourselves up to the totality of the Force, as opposed to simply the light and closing off an entire half of the Force? And I think it's dangerous for him. Like, I think it's dangerous. I think his curiosity is going to bite him in the end.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, because I thought about him falling as soon as he said how he views the Force.
The mind touch thing.
Oh no, I mean, that definitely is part of it.
Or
but
because
it's a fathomless ocean. Okay.
The ocean is dark
when you go really really deep. It gets dark.
and just the way they talk about him using the mind touch, and like they make special attention to talk about him wanting to use it on the Santekas, and he kind of goes, he knows how Avar would feel about that, and so he's like, I'm not gonna go that far. And I think that, again, that shows that he's willing to bend a little more than the other Jedi around him. And I think there is a danger to that. If the dark side corrupts absolutely, it's a dangerous path. I'm not saying he will fall. I'm just saying he's going to skirt the line, especially.
Wow. I am completely on the opposite end of the spectrum here. When you say curiosity killed the cat, I like to think Elzar is curiosity, not the cat. I think his curiosity,
kill a cat?
Probably.
But in a creative way.
But I think Elzar's curiosity is what's going to prevent him from falling. I think curiosity about the dark side is not what makes you fall. It's the fears that come with it. So if you're afraid of the dark side, that also can lead to the dark side. This kind of like plays out with Comac as well, is when he's saying like, why should we shut ourselves off from the Force, from the dark side, if only to better prepare ourselves to combat it. We should understand it. And so if Elzar is actively curious and researching and just kind of accepting that its existence and being at peace with it and not necessarily fearing it like Comac does, I don't think it's not nearly as dangerous as it is for Comac, because Elzar, whenever he is doing all of this mavericky stuff with the Force, he's the shining example of the Yoda quote. How can you tell from the good from the bad when you're at calm, peace, passive? And he doesn't have any of those dark side tendencies. He's just being a little bit more he's being more liberal with his use with the Force and his understanding with the Force. So I don't think necessarily that his brush with the darkness is going to, in terms of, at least from the context of curiosity's sake, is going to make him fall. Now, if in the second book, Out of the Shadows, I think, or Rising Storm, whichever one, right. If there is something that happens that causes him to go down that path, then of course it's going to become more dangerous. But for now, as I see him right now, he's just very curious and very open about his understanding of the Force rather than limiting his knowledge of it. So if Avar gets into trouble in another book and he starts to, go down that fear of losing her and all of that stuff, then of course he's got the that penchant for darkness.
I think you're on the right track. I just think it's opposite, because I think his relationship with Avar is what's going to cause him to go down the dark side. But I do agree that I think Elzar and Comac, whichever one is going to be the one, I think they are going to demonstrate for us that concept, because I've always said one of the biggest problems with the prequel era Jedi is they're all afraid of the dark side, of falling to the dark side. And like, fear is the path to the dark side, but they're all afraid to feel, afraid to have connections and attachments. Like, they're all afraid. And so I think you're right. I think, though, that Elzar's attachment to Avar is going to be what forces him to fall. Whereas Comac, I think, is going to have your idea of examining the dark side and trying to understand it intellectually. I think he's more the one to understand it intellectually, whereas Elzar is going to be the one who, in a very Anakin-like fashion, is going to think that the dark side can somehow help him save Avar or anyone else. But again, this is what's the fun of speculation, is that we are on opposite sides of that. That's why I wanted to bring it up, was because I knew we were on opposite ends of it.
Well, I kind of see your side too, though. I mean, I think that's kind of interesting to think about. When you're thinking about how the Sith came to be in the darkness, in the 100-year darkness, how, it started from someone's study of the dark side. It wasn't malicious. It didn't start out malicious. They were just like, I think we should be, studying the dark side. Then they went further and further, and they fell. So I see like the Comac version where he's like, I want to understand it more. This is all for great intentions and purposes. Let's study the dark side and understand it so that we can fight it. And then he's just like, when he comes back, he's like, oh, the dark side's the answer to everything.
Ooh. Speaking of another great comparison to make, and again, I'm looking at that from Elzar, Revan. It's a similar story to Revan of being like, I just want to understand more and more and more. And that craving for understanding eventually leads you to the point where you're so far removed from what you were that all that's left is that hunger, that craving for more, that search through the depths of the ocean of the Force. Like, it's very reminiscent of Revan for me.
The Revan vibes I get are from Into the Dark, though. With what's his name? Wreath's fellow apprentice.
Oh,
Des Ryden?
Des?
Yeah.
I love Des so much.
You know,
I get it from Orla too.
the running
Yeah.
off to adventure and leaving everything else behind. I mean, that's what got Revan involved in the war to begin with. You guys are going too slow. We need action. We need to do things now. That kind of gave me those vibes. But I guess that's a lot more basic of a take.
Yeah, but I'm getting Revan vibes from Orla too. All of them had small tastes of Revan in them, especially when they were going against the council to just go off to the station again. They were just like, they didn't say
like,
anything.
I already.
They're all shades of Revan and Qui-Gon and these Jedi that question the council and question the Force. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what prompts them to start getting more strict or to start implementing more rules, because there's more items out there. They've connected to the Outer Rim and have Jedi in way more locations. So they need a more rigid structure in order to facilitate that. And maybe that is also part of the downfall.
Because that also born out of fear. So.
And what's going to happen with the Starlight Beacon at the end of this? I mean, again, like I said, we're at that. We're in the prequels right now. We're in the Phantom Menace right now. But eventually we end up at Revenge of the Sith. And we know where this is going. And so there are these questions like, what happens to the Starlight Beacon? What happens to the Drangir? What happens to half of these characters who are species that would be old enough to be in the prequels?
Yeah.
And those are all the questions we just can't answer yet.
Which I love.
Yeah, me too.
This is my favorite time period because we've like, for how many years has it been where we're just speculating and theorizing about stuff we already know? In betweens. How many comments have you read? What would have happened if Qui-Gon lived? What would have happened if Anakin won on Mustafar? And I'm just like, I love doing these answers and doing these videos and educating the Star Wars fandom little by little in these engagements, but I'm tired of answering those questions. I want to talk about things that are new. I want to theorize about Marchion Ro, the Drengir, Comac, Orla, Wreath, Des. I want to theorize about where they're going. Yeah. I mean, like, there's still a lot of questions to be had with the Skywalker saga. But like, if I'm being frank, I don't want to answer those questions anymore. Like, it's there. It's the story's over. So like, part of me feels like there's no point in speculating on that when the story is just, it's gone. Mace Windu's dead. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny though, because I don't know, not to go back to complaining about the toxicity, but to have people who are like, a new era, that's stupid. Also, how powerful do you think Anakin would be in his prime? How many times?
You know what I don't know right now that's really upsetting me is that this infographic doesn't have their midichlorian counts right underneath it so that we can have an accurate tally of their power level.
They should have it underneath their portraits, their strongest force feats. Let's
potential, of course. Doesn't matter if they've ever reached
their potential meters.
Yeah. We need to know who's the strongest and why is it court.
Let's before we start to wrap things up here, let's catch up with the chat. Julia Christine, is there a difference between force healing and using the force to heal? I think not. I mean, you could probably in Torin Buck's case, buckets of blood. He keeps the blood in. He could theoretically use the Force to gather the blood and put it back into the wound. That way.
Yeah. What if he has such fine control? He can you spin it like a centrifuge.
Can he suture wounds with the Force?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do Force surgery. You know, you have scalpels and stuff going tick, 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 and then the guy just going like this.
I mean, is it any different than operating a vector? I mean,
no, it's not.
But that leads me to the next question. Are there Force dentists? I'm just saying, all right, you got a plaque buildup.
If there is,
they can also look at you and be like, "You don't feel any pain right now.
You don't have cavities." That would be a profitable business, because ain't nobody want to go digging around face first in someone else's mouth, so they might as well just be like this. Yes, cavities, gum disease. I sense it all. Darth Chaco, Mace Windu apologist. Right on.
Hey, Mace Windu fact. People forget pointer outer.
Let's see here. Elzar and Comac are some real wizard names, aren't they? They are.
Again, Elzar, bam, from Futurama. That's
Hit him with
all
a
I
space
think
diesel.
every single time, guys. Every time.
Aria says, I just love this new era. I love not knowing and being able to speculate. Absolutely.
Yes.
I love it when we have absolutely no answers yet. Because contrary to popular belief, which is I'm the CEO of That's Not Canon, I don't like saying that. I really don't. I really like to have everything open-ended and being like, this story is far from over. I don't really know what's going on. The Drenger, how do they work? What are their abilities? Where do they come from? We don't know. Marchion Ro, who is he? Is he a Maxine? I don't know. That's not canon. We don't know. So
plus we can't be wrong in right now.
Yeah.
Like when we make guesses, and so we can't have our comments section full of people actuallying us over like tiny little inconsistencies. You said the, and it's actually those.
Oh, wait. So, I don't want to expose Chaco, but he did get a net actually comment on his High Republic. I think you were saying about Jorah and Orla.
Oh, yeah.
Jorah and Orla.
It's like, dang it.
To be fair, there's a million Jedi right now.
Yeah.
Like, to be fair, there's so many, and those names are so close.
Jorla Morelli.
It's all good. But I mean, from what you were saying, Element, my mind is just thinking of where did you come from? Where did you go? Come from Marchion, bro.
Yes. Does he have a cotton eye? The eye.
Oh, and Julia just put that in chat. Sorry, I did not read that. But you and I were on the same wavelength.
Wow. We may have an encroaching triad. Or just another dyad, because I wasn't thinking that at all.
It was from what you were saying. So I can see why not. But
yeah. It all just dovetailed. I feel like Element's about to break out into part of your world. Oh, Little Mermaid, is that?
Yeah.
Look at these Jedi. Isn't it neat? I'm just...
Isn't it awesome how Drengir made Skier complete?
Yeah, he did. Oh, dude.
How cool is that?
You know who else lost an arm and then got a new organic arm?
Grievous?
Was great. No. I'm just gonna keep going. See, that's a comparison to Ski. I'm just gonna be.
I was
you know
like
that,
Bucky Barnes, obviously.
you know that image of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny, where he's pointing at the whiteboard and there's all these like
Yeah.
lines everywhere. That's gonna be me, but it's gonna just say crate in the middle of it. It's gonna be like, there he is.
Wow.
Alright.
And then
And
I
Din
thought,
Djarin can talk to sand people. The one he was, yeah, definitely crazy.
no, I
Heard
was,
Din Djarin confirmed to be crate.
I was thinking about Grievous because the lyrics of Part of Your World's like, wouldn't you say my collection's complete or something? He's like, this will be a fine addition to my collection. Wow. Okay. So, do we have any? We're running out of time, guys. Do we have any final thoughts? Any kind of anticipatory comments on Rising Storm, Out of the Shadows, Edge of Balance? High Republic's going to continue to change and evolve and morph into more Star Wars, which is always a good thing. More Star Wars, but. AJ, any final thoughts? Any kind of like comments you want to make about High Republic?
Oh, I'm so in love with this era in general. I love, like we said, all the questions that we have. I'm really enjoying not knowing, because especially when you're like us and you know so much about Star Wars in general,
Yeah.
it's hard to like read a book or watch. Like I just read Thrawn Alliances, and like the book didn't surprise me because I already knew what was coming. Like, and so I'm just like, okay, but like this is an era where I have no idea what's coming. So I get to experience it for the absolute first time, you know, and just really engage with this material in a new way. And I'm personally excited for Edge of Balance, perhaps most. And that's because I will admit that I am not a huge manga and anime person, but my 9-year-old daughter is. And the fact that we're getting a Star Wars manga with a female lead character, I was like, oh, that's going to be great. She and I are going to get to sit and read that together and really engage with that. And so that's just yet another layer of getting more people, not just like personally, but just more people with different interests, more into Star Wars. And anything that, again, brings in more people is always for the best.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because Edge of Balance is, you know, it's not going to be the first Star Wars manga, but it's going to be the first Star Wars that was made as a manga.
Mm-hmm.
All the other ones were book adaptations to manga. This is created for this art form, which we've never seen before. I'm excited to see exactly how that turns out. Beyond that, I'm along for the ride. As you guys know, I've read all the canon books, and so there's no reason to stop now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm in too deep. I am almost finished with Victory's Price right now. It so yeah, I will be reading all of them. That's just I just know
Absolutely.
this about myself.
With that said, I think Edge of Balance is also the one I'm looking forward to the most, as well as Out of the Shadows and Rising Storm. This whole narrative so far has just been incredible. And figuring out everything from the Amaxians to the Drengar to more marching on Ro is something that I'm along for the ride, and I can't wait for all of these books to come out, and these comics especially, and where we're gonna go for phase 2 of the High Republic. Are we gonna get another character sheet? Are we going to see oh, you're doing a really good job of being really still right now. I thought it was, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, AJ. But yeah, with that said, we are out of time. Thank you to AJ, aka Jedi_Starkiller on TikTok, for joining us today. Do you have any words of farewell for our viewers?
No, just thanks for having me again to you guys. thanks to everybody for listening to all the random stuff that I have to say.
All right. Thank you guys in the chat for tuning in to this live stream. Julia, Christine, X-Core Gamers, Skill, Darth Chocolate, Mentally Ill Sith Lord, Arya L, Vivian Baki, and everyone else who's here in spirit, who was joining earlier, but sadly is not with us anymore. Wow, that sounded morbid. Yeah, we're out of time.
But kind of angry.
But yeah, that's the end. On to the next one. We are all the Republic.
For light and for life.
May the Force be with you.